Welcome to Fathers Unfiltered. This is a podcast that allows separated fathers to tell their story. We've got today's guest. Do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us your name, your age, how many kids you got?
Hi, my name's Andy. I'm 37, 38 this year, and I have one daughter who will be 5, 6 this year.
Okay. How long have you been separated from your ex?
Oh, we separated in 2019.
Okay.
So what's that, 6 years?
Yeah. And how long were you together?
About 6 months, but in all honesty, it was like dog year. Every month was like a dog year. It felt so intense.
For only 6 months?
Yeah.
Okay. So take us back 2000 and, what is it? Well, thereabouts 2019.
Yeah, so we met in 2018, and we met on, I think it was like Tinder, on a dating app.
Was that back when it was free?
Yeah. We met on Tinder, exchanged chats, got to asked each other the usual questions like, what you're looking for, you like long-term, short-term. We were both saying, we like wanted long-term and so on. She told me she already had 3 kids. And sort of just exchanged messages, then we decided to do the first meet-up. We met at a pub in Solihull, I think, somewhere, Birmingham.
Coventry, is it?
No, Solihull, I think it is, Birmingham, somewhere like that, where I used to live, because I had a flat on my own at the time. And yeah, so we met we did the usual dating thing, and the first date was absolutely amazing. When you just sort of look at someone and they just seem like sweet and loving and, really down to earth and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was brilliant. What
did you end up doing? Where did you go?
I went to a pub that's now closed in, we just met up. I think it was halfway between where she lived and me. So I can't remember the name. I think it was like the Cambridge or something. But yeah, we just met up. We had a couple of drinks, had something to eat, I think. And we just chatted. And she just seemed like she had this whole sweet and innocent persona, like really genuine, really down to earth. And I was like, wow, I like this girl.
You got a good vibe from her?
Yeah. Yeah.
So how did it progress from there?
We did another date after that. And I used to be a chef back in the day, as you would say. I spent 15 years working in different trades. I've worked everywhere from London up to Birmingham and in between. I helped work at a restaurant in the French Alps when I did a snowboarding ski season. So quite a bit of experience. And, we do the usual dates and they ask what you're doing. At the time I was a chef, so I was like, yeah, I'm a chef. I cook, I this and that. And then the third date, I convinced her to come to mine because I could cook better than what the food you can get in the pubs.
Yeah.
Which was nice. She came over for dinner. We had dinner. Watched the film, glass of wine, and then she left on my own for the kids. And, it went on sort of like that until about mid-November. Beginning November, mid-November, we had she would stop at mine because obviously she had kids and, it's one of those, she always said that she didn't want to introduce me to the kids until she knew it was absolutely serious. And that she felt really strongly about me. So I was like, yeah, that's fair enough. I can understand. Because at the same time, I've dated a woman with a daughter before, and I know how much it can hurt the kids, with strangers just wandering in and out of their life. You know what I mean? And I was always sort of supportive of that. I was like, yeah, I don't want to get to know your kids if you're just gonna.
If it's not gonna work.
Yeah, if you're just gonna drag me out later, because it's just gonna cause stress for the kids and whatnot and confusion. So, I had a bit of a sense of what's the word? decency when it comes to that kind of thing. Because obviously, and also like the woman I dated in the past before her, I got to know her daughter quite well. And like at one point, she actually started calling me dad as well. Like,
So, this is a previous relationship.
yeah,
Okay.
From that experience, I didn't want that to happen again because I know it can be quite painful. You know, you build a bond with someone and then
They're not there
you
anymore.
can't see them again. So I was kind of like, yeah, I don't want that to happen again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That does hurt.
Yeah. Like, so from then on, and then and then when I did meet the kids, I think it was...
How long was that into it? I know you said you'd only together for around 6 months.
Oh, no, like, this was the strange bit. Like, from the start of the relationship right up until when I did meet the kids for the first time, you know, she would tell me, like, that was the best boyfriend she'd ever had, that all the other ones before were, like, arseholes and so on, and, you know, all she's ever known, she was a victim of abuse and this and that, and so I think it kind of felt like I got a bit sucked in a way, like, looking back on it now.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yeah, who's telling the truth here? You know.
Painting you out to be the best, and
yeah,
she's had a hard time.
Yeah, it told me that she had a hard time. And then after everything I've been through, I'm like, in hindsight, you were a liar. But, you know, it's one of them, like they say, hindsight's a wonderful thing.
It is.
But, yeah, so we slept together, obviously, before we met the kids. And then we had a very sort of weird first meeting, a weird sort of first interaction after meeting the kids.
Is that between you and the kids, or
between me and my mum? My
how so?
ex.
Like,
So the day I met the kids, we tried going to the German market in Birmingham, but the weather was naff. So I suggested we go over to Star City. And she was like, yeah, amazing. So, you know, we did Star City, we did laser tag, we did pizza. And then we ended up we finished up pizza and she took the kids home because her second youngest son was complaining of like pain in his stomach. But turns out he had appendicitis.
okay.
All right. So the next day, she'd taken her son to the doctor who said he's got appendicitis, you need to get him to the hospital. She took him to the hospital and then she was messaging me while he was being seen and scanned by the doctors and stuff. She was like, oh, I haven't got my phone, I haven't got any clothes, I haven't got this, I haven't got that. And her mum doesn't drive, so she had no one to bring anything to her. So I was like, listen, just tell me, what you want, where you want, I can go and get it. Like, you know, I don't want you to be stuck in the hospital without your phone and without being able to tell your mum or your family what's going on. So I said to her, I goes, look, just, you know, if I can either go and buy a change of clothes for you and a phone charger, or, you know, if you're okay with it, I'll just run up to your mum's house, grab a bag of clothes and your phone charger and whatnot. She can give it to me. And then I'll bring it over to you in the hospital. So she agreed and said, thank you very much. Like, met her at the hospital. I think it was Worcester Hospital, Children's Hospital. Dropped the bag off to her there. And then, like, you know, we had a chat. I said, you okay? So on. And obviously, I've left her to it because I'm not like, I'm not family or anything
stuff,
like that.
Yeah, she had stuff going on.
Yeah.
You're still relatively new at this point.
Yeah, so, but that was quite surprising that I met the kids though. Because the thing was, she'd said to me, like, that she didn't want me to meet the kids or the kids even know about me until, like, she was certain things are serious. But we'd only been dating, 8 weeks by this point?
Okay.
So September and October. And then in November, I get a message from her going, how do you feel about meeting the kids? So in my head, I'm like, well, you've told me that, you know, you don't want me to meet the kids unless you think it's genuinely, like, serious and, like, there's going to be a future going on. So I was like, so that must be a good thing, right? Like, I'm thinking, it must be a good thing. Like, you know, she's thinking, she's like sort of wanting me to meet the kids to see how we are together, then, or how the kids react to me and so on, then that must be a good thing. That, you know, she must have really like genuine strong feelings for me. So I was like, I was a bit hesitant, but I was like, yeah, you know, if you're ready, if you want me to do that, then I'll do that. And it's one of them sort of like.
Did you feel ready?
I was hesitant, but I was willing to do it, if that makes sense.
For her?
Yeah. Because it was like one of them whirlwind romances. You know, you were sort of. I've been told that I was the best thing that ever happened to her. I've been told that I was the best boyfriend she's ever had. Like rah rah rah. So, you know, she made me feel like I was like worth it, if that makes sense. And it was just like a whirlwind swept up romance, and essentially I got swept off my feet rather than sweeping the woman off the feet, if you know what I mean.
I get you.
It was insane.
So how did that day close out? Did you drop off the stuff and then...
So I dropped the stuff off at the hospital. We had a fag outside. And we just chatted. She said, thank you so much. She gave me a kiss. And, you know, I said, like, keep me updated. Let me know how your son is. And she was like, yeah, of course, blah, blah, blah. But then after that, that's when things started to sort of change.
Okay.
After that day. Don't know why, but looking back on it, it was that point when things started to go sort of more downhill, if you know what I mean. So like the next day I was messaging her, and for me, it was being considerate. It was like, I was messaging her saying, you know, like, how's your son? How's he doing? Blah, blah, blah. You know, like, you know, I hope he's all right. Da, 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 da. And then I got a message back along the lines of like, you're supposed to be there for me, not the kids.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
You know. And I was getting, the messages started to come across really aggressive. And like, I said, oh, I hope so-and-so's all right, you know, like, he, you know, it was really cool hanging out with him, you know, I don't want to see him be in pain or anything like that. And I was just trying to be kind, like, of thinking of everybody else in the equation.
Yeah, you've been introduced to the kids now, so you're showing that you're
like trying to be supportive.
Yeah.
And the message I got back was, you're supposed to be there for me, not for the kids. The kids are my problem, not yours.
Fair enough. So how did that make you... Did you pull back a bit? Or?
Yeah, I was like, okay, sorry if I crossed the line. You know, I was just trying to be supportive. And then she came when her son's father, the actual biological father, came to the hospital. She then came over and saw me, like, and stopped at my place for a bit, like, before, like, to catch sort of like a breather and sort of chill out. And then she went obviously back to the hospital afterwards. But like, while she was there, she was like, oh, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to like shout at you over the text and so on. You know, I'm just really stressed out, blah, 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 blah. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. You know, your son's having major surgery because your appendix is ruptured. You know, that can literally, I know for a fact that can literally kill someone. Oh, especially a child. So like, you know, you kind of think, okay, she's apologised, you know, she's gone to stress. Can't really hold that against her. And then it was after that, it just sort of went into this pattern of being really, really fun. And then and then it started getting sort of like these occasional aggressive messages in the evening, like, or I would say something and she would start accusing me of stuff and so on.
What, like?
Like one of the ones she was accusing me of was cheating on her with my friend who I hadn't seen for months. All because when my friend stopped over mine for my birthday that year, she left a bottle of shampoo in the shower. Right? Now, I don't use shampoo, I'm bald. Right? And I thought, the intention was my friend was supposed to come back round at some point, like to have a catch up, because we used to do climbing and stuff together. Like we used to do bouldering and things like that. And my friend actually did me a really big solid favor, because she does like climbing, exercise, and all this kind of stuff. And when I came back from the French Alps, I basically came back on the plane via a wheelchair because I twisted and pulled every muscle from my ankle to my butt, like in a snowboarding accident. And she was the one that helped me sort of like do the rehab, the training, the running, getting my knee strong again. So for my birthday, I pulled her across. I said, right, we're going out for my birthday, and this is sort of like a thank you for, helping me get back on my feet kind of thing. And I'm the type of guy that doesn't have like a lot of friends, because being autistic and having ADHD, I have a very small friend circle. So Lindsay was a friend I knew from college. And she basically sort of like stopped at mine like that on my birthday night and so on. So she had to change clothes and everything else. And yeah, and all because I'd left her bottle of shampoo in the shower because I wasn't going to throw it away. Because in my brain, it's like, oh, she'll come round to get it at some point. No point throwing it away kind of thing. Yeah, it started turning out, oh, you're cheating on me with her. You have feelings for her because you left her shampoo in the shower and you're not getting rid of it.
And this is all about the 3-month mark.
Yeah. Not even that, before December.
Okay.
Like, this was towards the end of November. Sort of.
Because you met the kids about
December.
the 2 months, so.
Yeah, it was about mid-November when I met the kids. Something like that. And this is what started after that, the 2-3 weeks following. I started getting accused of cheating on her and this and that and so on. All over a bottle of shampoo. It's insane, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's but some people are paranoid, some people are anxious, and some people have been hurt. So did this continue?
Yeah.
So there was no let up, and
no. So it was. The thing was, because she'd also told me she'd been a victim of domestic abuse and trauma and so on. It had almost sort of convinced me that, her reaction to me was because she'd been hurt in the past. So it's like a trauma reaction. Yeah. So I kind of made excuses for it constantly.
I used to always get told, from the women's point of view, you can't all treat the women, not all women are the same. So by the same point, not all the men are the same. So
yeah.
You can
So that's what I mean. I thought it was just like a trauma response or something. Sort of like, you've been treated badly for so long that being treated nicely feels wrong kind of thing. And she'd also expressed that in sort of a roundabout way. So I kind of just kept making excuses here and there. But what I didn't realise is I was basically being like drip fed. Like positive comments and then being pulled down. Positive comment, pulled down. Positive comment,
Is that how you felt?
Yeah. Well, looking back at it now, yeah. But at the time, I just made excuses for it. Because I was like, oh, she doesn't mean to. Because what she would do, she'd have a go and then apologise. And then say, I'm really sorry, I don't mean to do that. Like, I love you, you're a really good boyfriend, blah, blah, blah. And like, I got a message that said something like, just bear with me and, we'll get through it. So that to me seemed really sincere. So I was like, just bear with it. But, but what I didn't know is I was being sort of drip fed, like positive, negative, to get me into a sort of which now seems like you're getting me into a sort of a pattern.
So how did the relationship continue up and towards the end, which is only a few months away?
Essentially, she made a comment about how she's always coming over to mine and so on. And then sort of said, oh, why don't you stop at mine, since you met the kids and so on. So I started stopping at hers. And then it was like, oh, you can leave some stuff here if you want. And so on and so on. And then, but look, like I said, looking back, my mistake was saying yes that early, stopping at hers. Because essentially, it got to the point where I was trapped.
You was trapped?
Yeah. Like, there was one night where we had, in December, where we'd had a massive argument. She drank 2 or 3 bottles of wine. I'd had a couple of beers and I wanted to get up and go. Like, and she literally took my car keys and said, "You're not going anywhere. You've had beer," and locked the front door.
Okay. So you had an argument that night?
Yeah, there was several. It was once I started stopping at hers. That's when I started seeing the real.
I think in her defence, if you've had a few drinks, it's probably good.
It weren't even a few. It was 330ml bottles.
Okay.
And I know because I've got a personal license for the sale and retail of alcohol because I used to be a bar manager, and I know that you can drive on a pint and a half, which is 500ml for a pint. So you can basically have 750ml of lager and still be legally under the limit. I had 2 bottles in the space of 4 hours.
Okay.
So I knew I was well under the limit. Like, and I wanted to leave because like this argument was going 10 to the dozen.
Did that argument settle itself out that night?
No. This was the thing. When I started stopping with her, I started seeing a completely different side of her. Like, she drank every night, pretty much every night, at least a bottle of wine. Anywhere between 1 and 3 normally.
1 and 3?
Yeah. Normally. Every night. Right. And it was always sort of like, it was around 10 o'clock, you could just sort of see a switch, like a change in personality. And then all of a sudden, I would start getting shouted at, I would start getting moaned at. She'd start picking fights and picking arguments. These things would go on till like 2, 3 in the morning. Like most nights I was there.
What was it about?
Oh, just anything. It was any one of my exes, any one of my family members or friends and so on. You know, one of the arguments was that she was basically saying that my family were using me to like care for my mum because my mum was ill. And that, so they didn't have to, and you know, all this kind of stuff.
Okay, that not exactly relevant.
Well, that's it. Like the arguments progress through like different things. So like the conversation one day might be like, "I don't understand why I've got to do all the running around and sort this out and sort that out for my mum, blah, 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 blah." But then in the evening, the argument will turn out to be like, you know, your family are using you, blah, blah, blah. They're only getting you to do it so they don't have to, blah, 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 blah. So essentially, she basically alienated me from everyone. Like every time I brought up a topic of someone I could lean on or go to, the argument flipped to them using me or me fancying them or, you know, like me not being able to see them because it's not, you know, like they were using me or, you know, any one of a million excuses. So essentially, like, but I was getting like, what's the word? Sort of separated from everyone. So I was, so basically the only person I had was her. Yeah.
And at this point, you're probably talking 3 or 4 months together, thereabouts.
Yeah, that's pretty much mid-December, end of December.
Did you ever have the conversation about the arguments in the morning?
Yeah.
Did she remember them?
Yes. Her exact words were, every morning when we had the argument, she would say, "I'm not apologising for what I said, but I will apologise for how I said it. I could have said what I said in a nicer way." That's exactly what she would tell me, either in a text message or like before she got up.
And how did that sit with you?
I was like, well, at least she apologised. You know, it was something.
I'll take it.
But the thing was, you got to think, I used to work 12-hour days as a chef, if not more. And I would get, like, I'd come home to hers in the evening at like 11, 12 at night, and I'd have an argument till 4 a.m, and then get up at 7 to go to work. I was exhausted. I was sleep deprived. I was everything. Like, it was almost like it was planned to, like make me more...
Just drain you.
Yeah, to drain me so there was to be less fight and I'd be more accepting of everything.
So at what point was it where the relationship fully broke down? I'm guessing this continued, that pattern.
Yeah, so like it wasn't just verbal abuse. I got emotional abuse. I got things like, what's the word? It's like one night in particular, I said something that she disagreed with. Well, I went to get up off the sofa to go upstairs to bed because I was like, I'm not having this argument because the kids are upstairs. And this one time I was just like, I'm too tired. I've got work in the morning. And as I went to get up off the sofa, she jumped on me. She pinned both my hands, one to each side of my head, and then headbutted me and gave me 2 black eyes.
She headbutted you?
Yeah.
No.
And in the morning, her excuse was, I thought you were going to hit me. So I was defending myself. And, like, I was scared. Like, some days I didn't know whether I was meeting Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde, you know? It's like, it was that kind of thing. Like, some days she'd be, like, absolutely amazing and say, we'd go shopping and you'd see, like, these really lovely moments and that kind of reminded you of why you fell from in the first place.
What did you do after she headbutted you? Because that's quite a step.
Her mother actually saw it. I slept on the sofa that night, but her mother actually came down the stairs and said, "Oi, get off him now, pack it in." And she went off to bed and I chose to sleep on the sofa because I didn't want to go upstairs.
It's not often I hear women headbutting men.
Yeah, it's not often at all, but it happens.
So was that the end of the... Or was that... No, okay.
No. Like, that was before Christmas. But then...
So we're still in December?
Yeah. The December's the fun month, shall we say. December's then, after that, that was when she asked me if I wanted to stop for Christmas. And I was like, yeah, okay. Like, I said, yes, I wouldn't mind that. But I could only stay for Christmas Day if I met the other members of her family, because her family members come around on Christmas Day. So I was like, yeah, okay, fine, that makes sense. So I met all of her family members, including her sister, who's in a wheelchair, right? And the day I met her sister, as we went round her sister's house, and like I could see her sister like stretching and reaching for stuff in the wheelchair, right? Now, my mum's in a wheelchair, so it's second nature for me to watch someone in a wheelchair, because it's like if they fall, I jump and help them, like, so they don't get hurt and stuff like that. So as she was moving around, I kept like looking towards her, making sure, it was just like, because I've been doing it since I was 12 with my mum.
Yeah.
It was sort of like...
It was ingrained in you.
Yeah, it was automatic. And when we were at her sister's house, I got a text message from my missus, my ex at the time, like the one we're talking about, my daughter's mum.
Yeah.
While she was in the room, right, saying, "Stop looking at my sister."
Okay.
She thought she tried to accuse me of eyeing up her sister.
And not that you was actually seeing if she needed help.
And apparently, according to her sister tries it on with every one of her boyfriends.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was a bit like, okay. And then when I explained to her afterwards, she was like, stop looking at my sister, blah, 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 blah. She always tries it on with my boyfriend, so I thought you were trying... She was like, blah, 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 blah.
Did she accept your reasoning behind it?
She never accepted anything I said. No matter what reason I gave, nothing was accepted. There was always a reason to fight, or a reason why I was lying, or a reason why she didn't believe me.
Well, I could have been right, or...
Yeah. It was like I might have been right, I could have been right, so I am right kind of thing. So it was better just to shut up and put up, because the arguments finished quicker, and I could get the sleep that I was desperately wanting. But it was insane because there was things like the sexual intercourse in the relationship, right? So when you talk about rape, right, people think it's like the stereotypical sort of thought is one person forcing themselves on another, right? But that's not always the case. It's like when you've been gaslit and bullied and beaten to feel like that the only person you can rely on is your abuser, right? You pretty much cave at anything and everything, because if you try and fight it, it makes the situation worse.
Yeah.
So you basically just surrender every single time. So there was I used to get kicked in the back, kicked in the legs when we were in bed if I rolled onto my left side. Because then my back would be facing her. And if my back was facing her, then apparently I didn't love her.
So she'd kick you?
Yeah. So she'd kick me and nudge me.
Did she say anything after she kicked you?
No, she just like pretend it was like a spasm or something. Or she'd be like, oh, it's obvious you don't love me because you got your back to me. And then I would pretend to be asleep and not answer her. I even fake snored at one point. Like just hoping it would stop. And it was that kind of thing. So this was at like 4 or 5 in the morning, and I'm in work in like 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
So you can imagine how sleep deprived like that makes you. And then there was times where like we'd have like sexual intercourse, and if she wasn't satisfied, she made sure it went on for longer.
Okay.
If you know what I mean.
I got you.
So if I didn't have, if I said I wasn't in the mood or I was tired and I just wanted to go to sleep, I would get hours of abuse and the kicking and the nudging, saying, well, it's obvious you don't love me, rah, rah, rah. There's something wrong with me. You're sleeping with someone else because you don't want to have sex with me, blah, blah, blah.
Did you not think about leaving?
Yeah, several times. But the thing was, I got pulled down to the point where I thought that she was the only woman that would love me. After months and days and hours of this and sleep deprivation and like all those sort of all the insanity, you kind of left feeling like it's like sort of, I was thinking like I knew she was a victim of abuse, and I just had it in my head because of like all I can say, it was ingrained in me from the start that she said, bear with me and we'll get through it. Like right at the beginning. And I thought like, if I hold on just a little bit longer, they'll change. We're just getting through the rough bit and then blah, 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 blah. So it's literally like an abuse victim. It's the same sort of thing. You don't have to be physically hit or physically assaulted and battered and bruised to be a victim of domestic abuse. It's psychological manipulation. It's emotional. It's that whole kind of thing. So it's like those moments, like I was telling you about, like when we go shopping and she say, you're absolutely amazing, I love you. You see those moments and they remind you why you dated them in the first place. So the minute you decide or you start to pull away, they drop one of those moments and at least that's what she would do. And I would think, oh, she's still in there. And then that would remind me to sort of, it was almost like my Manchurian Candidate moment, like where it triggered that whole pattern to make me want to make me stay. But at the time, I didn't realize it. I've had to have years of therapy after coming out of that relationship. Like years.
What was the point at which it ended? Like, how did that happen?
That happened in the January, after we found out she was pregnant. And
how did you find out she was pregnant. How did that come about?
The usual man sort of style. It's like, you've had a massive change in mood swings. Like, if I didn't know anybody, I swear you were pregnant kind of conversation. So we did a pregnancy test on, I think it was New Year's Day.
Okay, so, right. Just after December.
Yeah, so... Yeah. So just after December, like after the Christmas period and meeting the family and everything else, it was she was being more insane than usual, more like swings and roundabouts than usual. And I just said, like, as a joke, I goes, if I didn't know anybody, I swear you were pregnant. And that's when she told me she was late by 5 days. And I went, I'm going to get a pregnancy test. So I drove around New Year's morning looking for a pharmacy about 9 o'clock that was open to get a pregnancy test from. And yeah, turned out she was pregnant.
How did you feel?
I wore a hole in the floor, shall we say, pacing backwards and forwards. I was happy but scared. Because obviously there's part of me that was like, you know, I'd love to be a dad, but then I was scared of her, but also in love with her at the same time. It's like the most weird feeling you could ever have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I get it.
But yeah, we broke up for the first time about a week or two after that. And literally she played the false rape accusation, which for me was like it was sort of like a reset code, that was. So she'd been drinking whilst knowing she was pregnant. And we were at her house and she basically come down to me, like, because we had an argument and I said, you know what, I'm going to sleep on the sofa. She went upstairs and then 10 minutes later or so, she came downstairs, swung open the bedroom, the living room door, and her exact words to me were, do you know what Catnip told me at work today? And I went, what? That I'm a horrible boyfriend, that you need to dump me, what? And she went, that having sex with a drunk person is technically classed as rape.
Okay.
And right there and then, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's a shock factor or if it's because, like, she was using sort of like the whole trying to intimidate me with a rape allegation or whatever. But then I was like, nah, I'm done. I was like, I'm done with this. I was like, I know you're pregnant, but in my head, I was like, I know you're pregnant, but I'm not doing this. Not if you're going to start flinging that stuff around. Like, I can take the beating, I can take the shouting, I can take this. I goes, but the minute you start throwing that word around, I'm out. And ironically, she went back upstairs, right? And then she sent me a text message. And she said, it basically asked me if I wanted sex.
Right after?
Yeah, right after that, she sent me a text message that said, do you fancy having sex? And my response was, after what you've just said, do you really think that's a good idea? And she went, it's sex, not marriage. You literally have it in writing. And then, because I didn't answer that message, the next one was, forget it. I'm not going to beg for it. I never have, never will.
Where was your head at this point?
Mars. Outside this atmosphere, I was just exhausted. I was like, I'm not doing this. At this point, I'm like, how the hell is she asking me for sex when she's literally just to imply, like, she's just tried to imply that any sex that we've had when she's had a drink, it was technically rape. At that point, I was like, nah. So the next morning, I got up when she got up, and I got up because obviously the kids were there, so I moved all my stuff real quick because I didn't want the kids to see that I'd been sleeping on the sofa. And then the next morning, like, the kids come down. I said, like, the kids, made sure they had, like, I was like, yeah, I'll get, go get your breakfast and stuff. And then she come down and I went upstairs and started packing my stuff. And then she actually came up and had a go at me because she was like, you couldn't have at least waited till the kids had gone before you started packing your stuff. Now I'm going to get 1,000,001 questions while they're seeing you packing your stuff. And I'm like, you tried to accuse me of rape. Do you really think I care at this point?
Yeah.
I didn't say that, but that's what I wanted to say. And then she said something else that was like, that probably shocked me even more. She turned around to me and she said, you know what? I settled for you because I thought you'd be grateful.
She settled.
Yeah. She told me that she literally turned around to me that morning and said, I settled for you because I thought you'd be grateful. Because no one else will love you. Kind of sort of thing. I've got it in a text message. It's brilliant. You couldn't get any like more classy than that, could you? I was like, wow. But yeah, I packed myself, got in the car and went. And at this point, I did the usual. I was in tears. I was emotional. Like with the ADHD as well, we feel things like 10 times more intensely than everything else. So I was in shock. I was scared. I didn't know what was going to happen with, the child that we're pregnant with and blah, blah, blah. And I did the usual. I phoned my mum and went and cried down the phone to my mum and told her what was going on. Told my sister, told my dad. And in all fairness, my mum supported me and she said, I'll support you whatever you do. And after I told my dad and my sister, like, they both said to me, they were like, you need to walk away from that because that's not going to end well.
It is.
And in fairness, I didn't agree with them. And I was like, because obviously it's my child. My dad always said, like, you make your mistakes, you got to deal with them. You can't just walk away. And I was adamant that I wasn't going to be like one of these dads that you hear that, gets a woman pregnant and then nass off, doesn't pay, doesn't do this, doesn't do that. I didn't want to be a deadbeat dad. So, and I wanted to be part of my daughter's life.
But you also have to think about yourself.
Yeah. And essentially, that turned into a load of back and forths and exchanges like after we split up. Where I got accused of ignoring her after we split up, that I was basically abandoning her, even though she told me to leave her alone and stop messaging. One day I was in work and I was dead busy and I couldn't like message back as quickly as she wanted. So I got accused of ignoring her and like not wanting to be involved and this and that. And then
there's not to be involved. She's just pregnant.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Unless it's an appointment.
But this is it. She turned around to me and she was like, you've made the mess and I've got to deal with it. Like, I've got to raise this child, blah, blah, blah. You're leaving me. You're not doing this. You're not doing that.
There's not to do.
Yeah, I know. I see that now. But like, there's nothing to do until
you have to go to some appointments.
Yeah.
And
which is what I said I would do. I was like, I'll go to the appointments with you if you'll let me. But yeah, everyone had to be on their terms. I couldn't say I was going to be there. Like, if I said that, she'd be like, you're not coming. Mm-hmm. But like,
yeah, if you actually tell them like what you want or what you get the opposite.
She's like, you got me pregnant. This is your fault. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. And I'm like, hang on, don't it take two to tango? Like, everything from this point on was my fault. Everything. The fact that she was pregnant, the fact that, she's going to have a baby, or whether she would have an abortion or this or that. And, like, yeah, it was just abuse continued. Like, she guilt tripped me into everything. Like, and long story, like, that happened for about a month. And then about mid-February, we got back together to try and make things work for the sake of the child, apparently.
What month was this?
This was mid-February.
Okay, so you're talking around 5 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was 5 weeks after we found out she was pregnant. So, we got back together.
What made you go back?
Because I didn't want to be a deadbeat dad and I didn't want to have a child growing up to a broken home. You know, I'd always pictured, like, if I was to have a child, I always pictured it'd be the whole, you know, happy family.
Yeah.
You know, the whole 2.4 children, picket fence, that kind of thing.
So you didn't go back for her? Or was that part of it?
Thinking about it, back then I did, but thinking about it now, I didn't. I went back for the sake of my daughter, basically. Which, when you do stuff like that, it never works. Which I found out on Valentine's Day when I got her, like, I tried to arrange something for Valentine's Day, like go for a walk or do this or do that. And she was like, no, I don't want to go for a walk. My ankles are hurting, my back's hurting, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, you've only been pregnant 6 weeks. I don't know how quickly it kicks in, but, you know. And she was like, you know, this, rah, 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 rah. But there was every excuse under the sun. And then on Valentine's Day, when I cooked this, so instead I said, all right, come on, man, I'll cook you some for dinner. And I got her, like, the chocolates that she likes, and I got her some flowers. And I got moaned at for not taking her out.
People have different expectations. That's one issue.
Yeah, I got moaned at because she wanted to go out to a restaurant or she wanted to go out to a walk. Everything she told me that she didn't want to do, I got moaned at for not doing it.
Yeah, you couldn't do right for doing that.
Nah, that's what I mean. So, like, everything was my fault from this point onwards. And I was like... And then that's when it just turned into a nightmare. That's when you just sort of knew that it was over and you were just coasting the wave until you hit the beach kind of thing. Even the first scan, she wouldn't let me have a photograph of it, of the first scan.
Why?
She wouldn't let me. I don't know why. She just said no. She just said no. And when the nurse asked if she wanted a scan, a photo of the scan, she went no. Right. And at this point, I was too afraid to challenge that or, like, say anything. And literally, like, when she got scanned the first time, the baby wasn't sitting in the right position. So, like, they were said, go, you know, you're going to have to walk around for a little bit to see if the baby moves so we can tell the measurements and, like, test, like, so, like, from the scan, they do the different tests and see if there's any specific conditions. I can't remember what they're called. But they couldn't get any of the accurate scans. So she's walking around the waiting room, like, going, this is your fault, rah, rah, rah. I don't know what you're crying for. Because I started crying when I saw the baby on the scan. Because for me, that was it's real moment. That was when it really hit home. You know, when you actually see, like, the heartbeat and you see the movement. And I teared up. I got told off for crying and being, like, really emotional. She's like, this isn't your child. This is my child. I'm the one that's pregnant, blah, blah, blah.
That's so bad.
Yeah. I had text messages from her saying stuff like, squirting sperm doesn't make you a dad. You're not a dad. You've never been one before. And when we actually broke up for the final time, like, I was saying, well, I want to be there for the child, like, whether you're willing, whether you want me to there or not, you know, it's my child, I want to be involved. And she went, how do you know it's yours? I cheated on you, it's not yours.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, I got everything. I cheated on you, it's not yours. I slept with someone else. You know, you'll never be a good dad. You work too much. You can't do this. You can't do that. And she was like, just leave me alone.
Do you know what she actually wanted?
No, not to this day. I still don't to this day. Still to this day, I don't know what she wants.
It seems so needless.
It was literally pointless. And she blamed all the sort of mood swings and aggressions and the violent temperament and stuff on hormones. She said she couldn't help it because she was pregnant. Literally. So at this point, I didn't know what to do with myself. I was just, my heart had gone. Nah, my heart was in my stomach. Like, I just felt like this black hole inside of me, and like, I was so upset. But the only thing I could sort of remember was, like, when I was snowboarding in France before I met her, I just felt at peace, like, on the mountaintops. So I had an opportunity to go to New Zealand.
Oh, yeah?
Like, to do a ski season over there. And I'd had the visa that I'd applied for, like, a year prior, before I met her. Because I was going to go there next after France. But because I met her, everything got put on hold. And it turned out the visa expired in May 2029.
Okay.
Oh, April 2019, sorry.
Oh, 2019. Okay.
Yeah, so April 2019, I was on the working holiday visa. So I gave up my apartment that I had, moved back in with my parents, sold my car, worked my butt off for 6 to 8 weeks, and then bought a ticket to New Zealand and disappeared till September. Because essentially, I'd already phoned up like different solicitors to ask legal advice, and they said there's nothing you can do until the child's actually born. So they said at the minute it's just a waiting game, because you can't start proceedings now because obviously, you know, the child dies in birth and so on. Then, you know, it's pointless. So I ended up going travelling. Like, I went to New Zealand and just sort of did snowboarding for the first 2 or 3 months, but it was more like I was running away from something. And no matter what I did, I couldn't settle, and jobs weren't easy. I was high emotion. So after a couple of months of like working and saving some more money, I basically sold everything off, got in my car and just drove around the South Island. Drove up to the ferry, got the ferry across to the North Island, and then ended up coming home in September in 2019. Because literally there was nothing else I could do. Like, I just had to get away, because I'd been told things like, you know, I'm going to carry on drinking, carry on smoking, and let nature take its course. Like, because she's a Catholic or something, I think she said, and she doesn't believe in an abortion. So essentially, she was going to carry on drinking and smoking because that could trigger a miscarriage. Like, you know, when you get told stuff like that, how do you come back from that?
Yeah.
You just can't, can you? But that's, you know, there's things that you expect people to say, and then someone turning around to you about your own child saying, you know, that I'm going to carry on drinking and smoking and let nature take its course because I don't believe in abortion. You know, that...
It's not fair.
Nah, that was like... It was just that point. I just broke at that point. I was broken into a million pieces, and I had no clue how to sort of pull myself back together.
Yeah. It's crazy that it's not a crime to actually drink or smoke while you're pregnant.
I know. This is one of the things, like, being a law graduate, this is one of the things I want to change in public law-wise, because it's, you see so many cases as well where, like, a mother has done drugs and drank and stuff like that, and you see before the child's even born, they come out with like disabilities or conditions, or they're addicted to the drugs that their parents were taking. But essentially, because the child isn't recognised as a living human until they're born, like, there's nothing they can do about it. The only thing they can do is wait and then take the child off them when the child comes out.
My friend, she died, I think it was 16, 17. She came out, I think she was addicted to pretty hard drugs, and she had a rough life and needed transplant because... Yeah,
because it's like deformities and everything. And the thing is, it's like you're damaging a child that is born, so it's like, you know, you can have the child taken off you, but because you drank before, you did all the damage before they were born, it's not a crime.
No, it's perfectly legal.
Yeah.
unacceptable.
But even when they are born, you can't be done for the crime because they technically didn't exist before that. So that's something that that's why one of the reasons why I became a solicitor. Training to be a solicitor, because at the end of the day, I told police about this, like what she said and how she did to me, and that, like, the responses I was getting was, "Oh, that's just a normal argument."
Normal argument about what?
So all the abuse she was giving me, my ex, and all that, like all these comments and all this stuff, right? It's actually classified as coercive control, abusive behaviour. I think it's section 76 of the Serious Crimes Act, right? Controlling and coercive behaviour. It's actually a crime to do that, right? But as a male, reporting it to the police, I spoke to female officers every time for some reason. And the times I'd actually spoke to them to try and report it, I got told by them that was just a normal argument, that it wasn't a crime. Like, literally. I was like, how is that a crime? You're literally bullying someone and threatening them. I was like, how is that a normal argument? Threatening someone with someone that you're going to have an abortion is not a normal argument.
No.
So
you came back, how long before the birth was that? It was about September.
Yeah, I came back 19th of September.
So that must have been pretty much around the birth.
That was 2 weeks. She was due at the end of September, because that was sort of like the time frame we'd worked out.
Was you in contact?
No. I tried messaging her while I was in New Zealand, to say, like I think in July, to say if we could, I thought, give it some space, let things calm down a bit. And I messaged her while I was in New Zealand, and I said, hey, can we talk, so on and so forth. I don't know how, because she blocked me on Facebook, and then she unblocked me. And I only know, and the only reason I kind of knew when she had unblocked me, because when you get the little picture bubbles above that say who's online. She came up, was online, and I was like, I swear she blocked me. But
I was going to say, if someone blocks you, I believe you unfollowed, so it shouldn't have appeared.
Yeah, but she appeared as someone I could talk to in the messenger, in Facebook Messenger.
You must have had a previous conversation active or something. I
don't know, but I messaged her and she read it, and she'd unblocked me. Okay. And I read it, and this will make sense in a minute. So she unblocked me, and I messaged her. She read it and then ignored it. And then come September, because she'd ignored me, I went to a solicitor for to start the sort of process, because it was like, I'm not going for the process of me trying to talk to you and you screaming abuse at me.
Yeah.
So got the solicitor involved in just before Christmas, the September, October, November, in 2019. She was adamant that she said I am the father, that she hadn't cheated on me, that I was lying. The baby wasn't due yet. She sent an email to my solicitor. I think she wouldn't tell us the due date, wouldn't tell us the name, wouldn't tell us the sex, wouldn't tell us anything. Right? And she's like, it's my child, it's my child, it's my child, it's my child. That's all she said, kind of thing. And even 5 days, I think it was 5 days, or it was between 2 and 5 days after my daughter's birthday, that she sent an email to my solicitor basically saying that she hadn't even given birth yet. So it just got dragged out and dragged out. I would try and talk to her about, I would send her, I think, I sent her an email, saying, because what was it? It started off with, the conversation between me and her. Started off in November, because I was at the German market and I got a random text from her saying, hey, can we, this is your daughter with a photo. Told me everything about her name, and so on. And then said, can we, can we not go through court? And I went, yeah, okay, well.
How did you feel when you saw the picture?
I was shaking.
Yeah?
I was shaking like mad.
First picture of your child?
Yeah. First picture, the name, how much she weighed, when she gave birth. And she said, can we not do a court? And I said, fine. I got rid of my solicitor as well, because he was aggravating the situation, and, well, at least I thought it was at the time. But the minute I got that email from her being nice, I fell into that.
You thought it could be amicable and it's going to smooth out.
I fell into that. This is why I fell in love with the sort of routine that happened before we broke up. We ended up in, we were trying mediation, right?
Did she turn up?
Yes, she did. And when we were in mediation, I asked about, being able to see my daughter, and she said no, because I'm afraid you're going to hurt her. I'm afraid you're going to kidnap her. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. I even said to her, I goes, look, I don't care if I'm surrounded by an army and you lock the front doors. I just want to see my daughter. That's it. And she was like, oh, we'll see how mediation goes. That kind of thing. And then during mediation, right, she turned around to me I said to her, I tried to message you in July, right? But you ignored me. And she literally turned around to me and went, what was I supposed to do? Fly over to New Zealand so we could have a conversation?
Maybe reply?
No. So, I've missed a bit, minor detail out. The only people that knew I was in New Zealand was my dad, my sister, and my mother. And my Uncle Drew, who's from New Zealand. They were the only people that knew I went there. I put posts on Facebook, of me and my friend Tegan, but I never mentioned where I was. I never geotagged anything. Right? I didn't say I was in New Zealand. I didn't say where I'd gone. I didn't tell anybody but my family, because I didn't want no one knowing. Right? The only thing that probably could have tied me to being in New Zealand was when I put all the posts to sell stuff in New Zealand. So the fact that she knew that I was in New Zealand, I never told her that. So she clearly been that's I'm guessing the whole reason why
if you've got
she
friends,
unblocked me.
Yeah, but she wouldn't actually see that directly, because if you put something for sale, it'd show the item and then it showed the location.
Yeah, but at the time, I didn't have any of the privacy settings on my Facebook. Anybody could look at my profile and see all my photos, all my pictures. It was after this that I put all the privacy up. Because she went, you were here, you were there, you were doing this, you were in the pub with your friend, and I'm like, I went, hold on a minute. I went, how'd you know I was in New Zealand? Because only my family knew about that. And then straight, she changed topic. So I knew she'd been stalking my profile, to try and, I don't know, maybe find someone else. But she tried to use the fact that I was in New Zealand against me. She went, you went to New Zealand, you were doing this, you were doing that, you didn't have a care in the world. How was I supposed to talk to you when, what was I supposed to do? Jump on a flight and come to New Zealand? And I was like, no, but you could have replied, you said. I was like, no, but you could have replied to my message. Yeah, but... And that's when I went, hang on a minute, how did you know I was in New Zealand?
Yeah.
Because I didn't tell you. I didn't tell anyone. And then all of a sudden it was oh yeah, but you did this in a relationship. You did this, you did that, blah, blah, blah. And even the mediator was he was saying let's bring it back home. This is about, about the child and so on, and, sorting something out. And she was like, but I've got all these questions. And I turned around to him and I went, you know what? Let her ask them. Let her get it off their chest and then we can move on. And she was like, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? You said this, you said that. She went, you taking me to court? I went, yeah, because you told me you cheated on me. and that the child wasn't mine. She goes, well, I wasn't being serious. And I was like, but then why say it?
You don't say that.
I was like, but why'd you say it then? She went, oh, because you hurt me. And I went, so what? You wanted to tell me, like, how did I hurt you? Like, all I said was I want to be there for you and support you. Like,
I gotta say, you could have come with really good one then. You could have said that, but...
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like, it's like you were saying about the names of, like, different things, and people like to be, like a dig here or a dig there or something sarcastic. I just wanted to see my daughter at this point.
Yeah.
No, I'm over the whole, take a dig for a dig. I didn't want to do that. Because at the end of the day, I knew we weren't getting back together. I knew we weren't going to work. And I was just like, I just want to see my daughter. I want to have a relationship with my daughter, and that's it. But it was just practically impossible. So she was outright refusing everything. Like, I would say, like, I'm working, so, how much is child, let's work out child, like maintenance or whatever, and, like support payments. She told me she wanted a new pram for the car, and I was like, right, let me know which one you want. I'll buy it and have it delivered to your house. She never did. She never did tell me, and then I got accused of, like, pretending to care because I never bought something that I didn't know that I needed, what it was she wanted. Everything was a competition with her from this point onwards, essentially. So during the mediation, she sort of guilt tripped me into everything and sort of into almost dropping the court case. But then the morning after mediation, I was like, no. I was like, I'm not dropping the court case because I don't trust you. I came to my senses quite quickly. And I was like, I don't trust you. I don't believe you're going to hold up to what you're saying is. And every time I try and be nice to arrange something, like money and, like toys and like clothes or whatever you need, like, you always turn it into an argument. So I was like, no, I want it in writing. Like, and so we went through the court process. To start off with, in the court process, there was no strong accusations. There was just, it was a bad relationship. Until she found out that I told the CAFCAS officer that she was an alcoholic and drank every day. Which is true. Like, I was like, she was abusive, she was shouting at me, like, she'd do this, she'd do that. And it was just kind of like one of those. But, like, I will admit, I did make a mistake as well, which didn't help things. Like, before she told me about my daughter, like, she didn't know, I didn't know what my daughter looked like, where she was, anything about her, if she was safe or anything. All I know is that in my head, she was with this alcoholic, abusive woman that beat on me. So I phoned up the local social services to say, look, I've got concerns, because of X, Y, and Z, and these are what my concerns are. And they went round at her house, and obviously to check and talk to her about it. Now, my intention wasn't to get her in trouble or anything like that, but my intention was to try and get some information about who my daughter was and what she looked like and so on, and make sure she was okay. Because obviously I'm getting all these abusive messages and everything from my ex. Yeah, so I probably shouldn't have done that, but in fairness, at the time, I was a bit distraught, if you know what I mean.
Did it not have the result that you was hoping for?
No, they just basically went, she's fine, she's well looked after, that was it, that's all I got told. I didn't get any other information or anything. So, like, I hold my hands up to that. I probably shouldn't have done that, but I was panicking and distressed, like, no one was telling me anything. So,
to be fair, it's a valid concern.
You could kind of say I was having a bit of an autistic meltdown.
I don't know if someone's drinking 1 to 3 bottles a night.
Yeah, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're doing it during a pregnancy or after.
No. I mean, you did have other concerns earlier on.
But that's it. It was one of those. Like, I probably shouldn't have done that. That probably did make things a little bit worse. But it kind of helped in a way when it came to the court case. because she told them in the court case, like she told the social workers, like a completely different story that she told the courts of to how we met and so on.
Why did she do that?
I have no idea, but the story didn't add up to what was in that report wasn't the same as what she told the courts.
How did that go down?
Oh, when we came to having the Section 7 report done by Kafkas in the first set of proceedings, she then accused me of rape. She hadn't mentioned anything to the previous Kafkas officer. Like the telephone one, when we did the telephone interview about it, but it wasn't until that and a couple of, and like obviously I turned around and said that she was a drinker and so on. That the next time Kafkas were involved, she told Kafkas that I took advantage of her when she was drunk.
And this is the first time it's getting raised.
Yeah, that's the first time it's getting raised. She never mentioned it in the beginning. She never filed any application or told her solicitors that she was a victim of domestic abuse or anything. Right? I did. I filed the C1A application for domestic abuse. I also filed a 35-page appendix with 5 different sections in it relating to all the allegations of domestic abuse which correlate to the C1A application form. Because you have on the C1A, you have the different columns where it's like behavioural abuse, psychological abuse, financial abuse, and so on. So I filed that. Never got a response from her or her solicitors regarding it.
Did anything at all come of it?
Nah, basically the judge that oversaw the case essentially was District Judge Khan, and he's the one that's been involved like from start to finish. He basically turned around and said there's no need for he sees no point in doing a finding of fact because it won't help, it won't affect the way of which I have a relationship with my daughter, basically. So all these allegations that she made against me went uncontested.
So her allegations were allowed to stand, but yours were just dismissed.
Yeah. The Kafkas officer that we dealt with the first time for the Section 7 report, she came to visit me at my house, right? And I told her that had finally worked up the courage to report like this, basically the sexual assault and stuff and the abusive behaviour to the police. Do you want to know what her response was?
Go on.
What's the point in that? What do you think it's gonna do? How do you think it's gonna help the situation?
That's all they said.
That's what she said to my face. She went, well, what's the point? How's that gonna help the situation?
How did that make you?
In the Section 7 report, she said she put that when my ex said that I took advantage of her through drink, she put, this is rape, this is this. I have advised her to go to the police or like somewhat along those lines. But then when I tell her the actual truth, she was like, well, what do you think that's going to achieve? How's that going to help? And I'm like, I was gobsmacked. I was like, did you literally just say that to me?
Yeah. It's like one person's allowed to abuse the other, but the other one...
It's insane how the court system works. So, like, my ex's allegations were allowed to stand. Right? So, in the first set of proceedings, she accused me of being mentally unstable, domestically abusive. She accused me of rape. She accused me of everything under the sun except for child abuse. That's the one thing she didn't accuse me of.
Well, that's fortunate.
Yeah, well, yeah. But like, I remember saying to one of my friends at uni, because I was doing my law degree, starting my law degree at this point. I said, the only thing she hasn't accused me of is child abuse. I goes, I wonder when that's going to come out. But yeah, I basically got the I had to get letters from my doctors to prove that I was stable. We had to get all the other documents and so on, like, to basically counteract it. And I even told the judge that, you know, I'd made a formal complaint to the police about like the abuse and the sexual assault and everything, right? But he didn't want to see that evidence though.
Just dismissed it.
Yeah.
Like, why?
No idea. At the time, I thought like genuinely it was because it had like the rape, like both allegations from her and me were basically irrelevant because it was all about the child. So I kind of thought, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. It does, and it makes sense now even more. Like, so essentially I didn't see my daughter until around her first birthday. Or around that when contact started, because unfortunately the court hearing that decided on contact moving forward was when COVID hit. So everything was shut and we had to wait for COVID to like die down and open back up again. So everything, so we went through all that. And then I started seeing my daughter at a contact centre, which was miles away, like Hereford somewhere. Now, the staff there were absolutely brilliant. You know, they helped out. We had I had to wait in a room while they brought my daughter in and that, and then mum could leave. But yeah, I missed a bit. So that social worker I was telling you about, like from Kafkas, I made a formal complaint against her for like, basically, because I knew that she couldn't put certain comments in the report, right? Because she basically was trying to say that it was my, like, disabilities and my mental health conditions, like my learning difficulties and stuff, which caused me to be, like, to misread all the cues in the relationship, like, according to what mum had said, because my ex had said, like, she was trying to get me to leave her alone and so on and so forth. So she was like, and she put, like, I wonder if it was father's, like, mental health conditions and so on that's made him made him not realise the cues, like, that mum was trying to back off, that mum was trying to do this. So I put in a complaint for discrimination arising from disabilities. My complaint wasn't upheld, but for some strange reason, the Kafkas officer went off sick and never came back. What a coincidence that is. So I got a new Kafkas officer. Now, she was amazing. She specialised in mental health conditions and so on. And, like, she used to be a psychologist or something. And she deals with, like, ADHD, neurodivergence. So she knew exactly what I was trying to get at whenever I tried to explain anything. My ex hated her. My ex said she was absolutely useless and she absolutely hated her. Because basically she took no sides. So, like, the first Kafkas officer clearly, like, you could clearly say was taking mum's side, right? But the new one, Zareen, she was, like, straight down the middle. She didn't care what mum or I thought. It was all about child focus. And, like she even helped the contact centre understand how my conditions affected my presentation, because originally they thought I was doing things wrong, but because the way I was acting and that at the contact centre and the way I presented myself, but she spoke to them and said, no, he can't help that. You can't, like, judge him on that, because that's how his autism, that's how his ADHD affects him. Like, he can't control that, so that can't be held against him. And then after that, they sort of started working with me to help me get around those sort of things, so I could interact with my daughter a lot more, and everything was getting a lot better. And the reports were getting better. They were showing I was like progressing more and more each week. But yeah, whatever mum could, like, find to pick up, like, pick wrong, she could, like. Apparently, she had concerns around my ability to care for my daughter, right, or my daughter being in my care, because one time I put a nappy on backwards.
Okay.
They're the same front to back.
Near enough. I think there's a slight different design, but it's not the end of the world, to be fair.
But you know what I mean? It's like, I put a nappy on once wrong the first time I did it, because I didn't realise it said back on the back of it.
all right. People make mistakes.
I know, but it's like, but according to Mum, that was the whole. That basically meant that I couldn't care for my daughter.
That was the equivalent to child abuse.
Yeah, that was like I couldn't care for my daughter. I couldn't look after her. I didn't know what to do, and I'm like,
You're not allowed to make mistakes.
yeah, I know, right? But yeah, so it was quite tedious back and forth. So it's 1 minute she would stop contact and say she didn't think that it was in the child's best interest because my daughter was having nightmares, she was having this, she was having that, she was being difficult.
Wait, how old was your daughter at this point?
Like 2.
Having nightmares.
Yeah, apparently she was being really difficult. Like when it was time to go to the contact centre, she was refusing to, she was kicking and screaming and blah, blah, blah.
How would she know she's going to a contact centre?
I have no idea. But apparently every Tuesday when the contact was...
It's convenient, that.
Yeah, she was very difficult in the morning. And then she was very unsettled for the next week until the next one.
She might be telepathic.
Yeah, I know, right? That's what I thought. I thought, she's 2. How does she say she doesn't want to go? You know. But the report said otherwise. The report said, like, I was getting to the point where I could pick her up, I could hold her, I could hug her, I could kiss her, like kiss my daughter on the forehead, you know, those sort of things. And she'd sit in my lap and we'd read a book. Like, it took a while to get there, but we got there. I guess she was just stubborn like me. And eventually we started getting, like, things got better. But then obviously when things started getting better, Mother was like, I don't want contact, because we'd have them in sets of 6. Right, so I did 6, and then I did another 6, and I did another 4.
So you had to go to a contact centre to do all this?
Yes. But in between each set of proceedings, each set of contact, Mother would, like, the first time she said it's not in the child's best interest, blah, 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 blah. She's not going to a contact centre. Then when we went to court, she'd turn around and say, no, I don't have a problem with it. Like, I don't have a problem with being at the contact centre. You know, I'm happy for it to start again. It's his fault. He didn't want to do it. Like, kind of thing. And this happened every single time contact stopped. Right? And then the final time was in July 2021, right? Or June. Contact stopped, and we agreed that once she'd met my dad and my sister a couple of times, you know, and after the community sessions, like the interim CAFCAS report said it's time to move into the community. Any further and it would cause have a negative effect on the child and the relationship with father. But she was disputing that, saying she wanted it to continue at the contact centre because apparently my daughter was still unsettled, she was still being this difficult and so on. So we did the last 4 sessions, and the 5th week she turned up to the contact centre, even though there wasn't one booked.
Right.
And then that was my fault because apparently I cancelled sessions or I stopped paying for contact. So she disputed that I couldn't look after my daughter and I wasn't doing this because she made a mistake.
Did this get clarified?
Yeah, it took 6 weeks, but it got clarified.
Okay.
Like, she basically went into court and said, oh, no. Like, I'm happy to move. I want to move into the community. I want to do this. I want to do that. So outside of court, she was sticking her foot down and telling me and my solicitor to basically go forth and multiply. I want a court order. But then when we get to court, she's going, no, I'm happy with that. I had no problem with that. Yeah, exactly.
What I don't get is all this, like, keeping, like, the other parent away, regardless of which side. It hurts the child.
Yeah. That's what I mean. So, like, even Kafka said that. They said the more breaks there are and the more time apart, it's going to negatively affect the relationship, right, between father and daughter. So, because Kafka has said that, but guess what happened? There kept on being breaks in between contact. And she wouldn't do anything unless she was court ordered.
So where are you up to with it all now?
So right now, I haven't seen my daughter for 2 years.
No contact.
No contact whatsoever. All because of some...
How old is your daughter now?
She's 19. She'll be 6. Oh, shit. 6 this year.
6.
She was born in 2019. So, yeah, 6 this year. I haven't seen her for 2 of them. I've only had her for 2 years of her entire life. Basically.
And where are you with it now?
About to file another court application.
No, I mean, that aside, like, what like, mentally with it are you sort of...
I don't know, I'm exhausted. Like, part of me wants to give up because it's just so much fighting, but I don't want to turn around to I don't want my daughter coming to me in like 10 years from now saying, why did you give up on me?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I just don't want that. Like, but there's like, obviously, the courts have been an absolute pain this time around. Like, I swear, what's the combined family courts? I swear they've got like rules unto their own. Like, without a doubt. I had the same judge sitting on my case that I had in the first set of proceedings, and he literally, every time I've tried to induce evidence or seek permission to include evidence that portrays mum in a bad light or proves her to be a liar or proves any part of her witness statements to be lying, or any evidence that she's given to social services to be lying, it got deemed irrelevant and inadmissible, so I couldn't use it.
I mean, you know more about the system than most. What can you do from that point when they just dismiss you?
Well, at the time I didn't know, but you can appeal their decisions and you can keep putting in different applications up to a certain point. Like, I applied back to the courts the second time round because in 2022, my daughter's mother made an allegation to social services that my daughter had admitted to being abused in my care. Right? Or she was watching a 15 rated film named The Policeman with a load of sex scenes and a load of fighting and whatever in it. Right? And my daughter turned around and at this point admitted that she was abused in my care. And yet mother was the only witness. There was no other witness. Not one.
How was she a witness? Oh, because she
heard my daughter say it.
Oh.
She was the only witness to my daughter saying this, right? And I'm trying to tell the social services when I'm talking to them, like, I was like, how can you take her word for granted? This was the male social worker that I first dealt with. I said, she's an abuser. She abused me. She assaulted me. She sexually assaulted me, all this and all that, blah, blah, blah. I goes, she's threatened me. She's done this. She's done that. And he's like, and I goes, she will make things up to basically like, to find a way to use my daughter as a weapon. And he turned around and he goes, but this is exactly what he said to me. He goes, but mum's not like making the allegation. She's just telling us what your daughter said. And I went, but how do you know my daughter said that? Because mum told us. I went, exactly. I goes, she's lied in the past and she's lying now. I goes, we had an argument that day, and I goes, for the months leading up to it, I basically refused to argue anymore. I literally told her after a 2.5 hour argument at her front door that I don't want to do this anymore. I goes, I just want to see my daughter and be happy. I went, that's it.
I've found that. But whenever after you have an argument, there's always some sort of punishment that follows.
Yeah. Like, and like one of the arguments we had, I think in the October, was because I live it's an hour drive from my house to my daughter's mum's house, right? Or to where I pick her up from. And basically what she wanted to do was she wanted me to pick my daughter up, like this was over Christmas, right? Pick my daughter up on the Monday, take her back on the Tuesday. Pick her up on the Thursday, take her back on the Friday. Right? And, you know, like that kind of thing. Like, I was only allowed to have her for 2 days at a time, so one night or 2 nights, max. Right? So I take her, say, Monday morning and have to drop her back, or Monday afternoon, and then drop her back Wednesday morning. Like, it was that kind of thing. Like, because the thing was, the more my daughter spent time with me, the more my daughter was saying, like, I don't want to go home. Mommy shouts at me. Mommy does this. Mommy does that. Like one of the things, I've got a recording of my daughter saying, because I bought her a toy for her birthday. It was like one of them electric walking dogs. And she's walking the dog in the kitchen. I'm recording it just like as you would as a dad. And she turns around and she says, Mummy says it's your fault we have to do handover at Nanny house. Mummy don't like you. Mummy hate you. Nah, so you've got a 3-year-old child at the time talking far beyond their years.
Well, that's one parent manipulating a child.
Yeah, and I tried to tell social services this. I even gave the recording to social services. I think his name was Stuart Fowler. He basically turned around and said there was nothing concerning in those recordings.
There's something very concerning. The chap who I actually spoke to yesterday, you got to see the result of that over the course of 16 years, and it basically one parent is almost pushed out of their life.
Yeah, and that's basically like I was telling him like if I said to you, right, just as a general like dad, if I say to you like I got screamed at a front door for 2.5 hours by my daughter's mum, right, non-stop while your daughter was present, would that be concerning to you or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, but according to a social worker, that's not concerning at all. And this was Worcestershire Children's First Social Services. Like, this guy was on one. He was like, anything he could find against me, he flipped, like, in the Section 47 report. Like, I went and sought, like, I'm autistic and I'm very logical, right? Mm-hmm. So I sought free legal advice when I was getting concerned about the mother starting arguments constantly at the front door, because that's usually a sign, like, in the past, that's been a sign of worse things to come. So I went and sought legal advice, and the legal advice was to record what's being said and so on and so forth, like, and keep a note of it, right? So if I said to you, record what's being said, what's the first thing you think of?
Well, you video record it.
Me being logical, you tell me record, I see black and white. So record to me means record as in audio or video.
Well, I believe you were allowed to record, and then if you're taking it to court, you have to transcribe it. You're not allowed to take the actual recording.
Yeah. Which is what I did. I paid for it to be transcribed.
And they dismissed it.
Yeah, and he said to me, there's and I told the social worker what had happened, and he went, and I gave him the recordings, and because he wanted me to send them over via email, I had to break them down into small enough, like, file sizes, like less than 25 megs, to get them to him. So essentially, it worked out to be something like 94 recordings, right? In the Section 47 report, I told him like why I'd done that when I spoke to him on the phone. I said, look, I've had to break them down so they fit into the emails, or fit into an email, like blah blah blah. In the Section 47 report, he turned around and put he has made over 90 recordings and interactions of the mother and his daughter, blah blah blah. This, in my opinion, is can be seen as obsessive and controlling, something like that. And I'm like, you absolute tool. Like, I literally told him that I only broke them down into those recordings so I could send them to him via email. Did
that get rebutted, or?
I couldn't. Everything I tried to rebut, like I had the judge, every time I tried to rebut something, he wouldn't hear it. The same judge, District Judge Khan, wouldn't hear a thing I had to say.
How does it feel knowing that you're training to be a solicitor, to be a part of this system?
Proud.
Really?
Like, because the way I see it is, I'm proud that I'm training to be a solicitor because I am not going to let this happen to anyone else. So when I say proud, I mean, like, I'm not proud to be a part of the negative system. I'm proud that I've used my bad experiences and turned it into a positive influence on my life, so I can stop what's happened to me happening to every other father or dad or mother or whoever. Because, like, as much as, like, you know, it's, like, it happens commonly to fathers, but there is the rare cases where, like, especially with social services, they don't care whether you're male or female. Like, there's a solicitor from Duncan Lewis in Birmingham, I think. She's currently suing, I think it's Birmingham City Council, I think. I'd have to double check. But she's basically suing a council for taking a child away from the mother because the autistic mother went to them asking for help and they declared her an unfit mother.
Okay. That's...
You know what I mean? Like, and I've basically gone to social services and I said, I'm autistic, I've got ADHD, I've got this, I've got that. And they've basically declared me an unfit parent. Like, they basically said that my daughter was at serious risk of harm in my care, right? But then, this is why, like, but from a legal perspective, if I can tell anyone, always ask for a subject access request if you don't think something's right. Right? It's basically like GDPR. Like, any personal data they hold on you, they have to give it you when you ask them to release it to you. But if you're going to do it, be specific. So I asked for everything. I asked for any document, any email, any letter, any memo, anything that mentioned me, right? And on Christmas Eve, I got that disclosure this year from the Worcestershire Social Service, Worcestershire County Council Children's Services, right? And within that email and within that document was a 99% redacted email, right, that was from the original social worker who I made a formal complaint against. And within that email, there was one line that wasn't redacted, and it said, having visited Dad and spoken to him, I see no other option but to close it, really. The parents have an acrimonious relationship and the police are taking no further action. Right. This was 4 days before he issued a report, the same day he visited my house. Right. But the day before he submitted my Section 47 report, my formal complaint got accepted on the 1st of December. And then on the 2nd of December, this guy submitted a report saying that, you know, there was nothing concerning in the recordings. There was nothing concerning about that. There is indicators that the child was abused and so on. There's evidence that the child was abused in father's care. It is my opinion that the child is at serious risk of harm in father's care. How do you jump from 4 days prior, like once you've done, I was the last person he spoke to for the investigation. So how do you jump from that, plus an email saying that you've got no other option but to close it, right, to there is serious risk of harm? It doesn't make sense.
Especially if there's no other meetings.
No, that's it. There was no other meetings. Like, I've seen all the documents relating to it. Like, there was no other meetings. There was nothing. He had everything. Like, he had all the information from my daughter's nursery, from here, from there, from everywhere. Right? All he had to do was write the report. But the only thing that happened between him visiting me and sending that email and him submitting that report was me making a formal complaint. Because he was rude, he was dismissive, and he just, from the minute he knocked on my front door, he looked like he didn't want to be there. You know, when you just sort of, he's like, let's get this over and done with. Like, I don't want to be here. Like, that's just the kind of attitude I got from him from the start. Like, when I tried to tell him about the recordings, first time he went, no, I'm not interested. In my own living room, told me he wasn't interested in my ex being abusive.
I thought that'd be relevant to any instance.
That's it.
My issue with it all, if it was the other way around and there were instances of you being abusive, that'd probably be taken seriously.
Oh, yeah. Like, it was like, that's what I mean. In the Section 47 report, he put, that apparently I had controlling and coercive behaviour and tendencies, and I was this, I was that.
What was you actually controlling, though?
I have no idea.
Because you didn't even have access.
But I turned round to him. I did up to the report. Because the visitation stopped on the 6th of November or something like that in 2022, and the report happened over the next month.
But that visitation was only for a contact centre?
No. This was, we'd moved into the community in the last 2 years.
Okay.
That was in 21. 21, we moved into the community. Sorry, I skipped ahead a bit there. And we moved into the community, which was a whole farce on its own. Like, but the second time around, like after a year and 18 months, my daughter started talking. My daughter started telling me what, mum's saying about her. That, like, my daughter even turned around to me. Like, I found a bit of a common ground with my daughter was painting nails. So she would paint mine and I would paint hers, which was kind of cool. Like, but she would go home and then mummy would make her take it off because and then she'd come back to me and I'd say, "Where's your nail polish?" She goes, "You not like it?" And she went, "No, mummy took it off." And I was like, "Why?" And she went, "Because mummy said you've not done it properly. Mummy doesn't like it. Okay. Mummy doesn't want you to do my nails."
You're bonding.
Yeah. It's that kind of thing. And this is what all my daughter was saying to me. She was saying all this kind of stuff. Like she even turned around to me one time and said, "Mummy called me a butthead because I wanted to go outside or something," or, But so you get those type of ones, right? Butthead, come on. Like, that's not nothing. I wouldn't bat an eyelid at that. I wouldn't say that, you calling your child a butthead as a joke, like, is abusive. Do you know what I mean? But when they're turning around saying, "Mummy says it's your fault that we have to do handover at nanny house. Mummy hates you." That's concerning to me.
Yeah.
And that's what I was recording, like those sort of moments. Like, and it's just insane. Like,
so now you're taking like the court system to court, is it?
Yeah, so essentially what I'm doing now is I'm filing a civil lawsuit against the Children's Services for what's known as professional misconduct and gross negligence. And then essentially and then I've already done an appeal against the finding of facts, which wasn't successful, but I'm going to file an appeal again based on the evidence from that the judge gave me, like Judge Khan, because he refused to make reasonable adjustments. He refused to acknowledge an application for reasonable adjustment until after the hearing was done. He made no mention of it in the court order afterwards and why he refused it. And he essentially attacked my carer in the courtroom for no reason, all because I was pointing out everything that he did wrong. Like, it's like what we call legalese. So I was saying, "Well, Your Honour, respectfully, if you'd have let this, and this happen, and if you hadn't have refused this in the first place, we won't be in this situation." Like, blah, 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 blah. I would have had the evidence to argue that, like, during the finding of fact. And I kept pulling him on, like, or every time someone, like one of the opposing counsel said something about, like, the trial judge would have done this, the trial judge would have done that. I commented afterwards and I said, "Well, the only reason the trial judge did that is because, respectfully, Your Honour, you refused to allow the application to go ahead." Like, I filed 3 separate applications before the finding of fact to have the authors of all the reports, like the nursery, the social workers, the social services, to be present for the purposes of cross-examination, right? Because I was contending that the Section 47 report was biased and discriminatory at best. Which turns out I was right. So he refused all 3 of those applications, and his exact words were to me, "I have never made an order for local authority staff to attend court, and I'm not going to start now."
Seems like this chap's got a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah. No, he sided with mother on everything. Like, anything that made mum look bad, he didn't want to do it. He wouldn't let it happen. But, like, there's an interesting thing, right? In childcare proceedings, there is something, it's called the no order principle. So a court will not make an order if it is not in the best interests of the child or is at risk of causing more harm than good, right? So during the first set of proceedings, I didn't clock this until I was doing my research about 6 months back, because it's one of them, it happened and it blinks over your head. He made an order directing Kafkas to do DBS checks on my sister and my father, All because mother turned around and said, I have concerns. No other evidence whatsoever. But that caused a 6-week delay in contact because he agreed to do an order for my sister and my dad to be CRB checked, right? Because my ex-partner said that she had concerns they were a risk to my daughter.
Any evidence?
Nope.
So
she has never submitted one piece of evidence.
She can just say she has concerns, and that delays the whole process.
Yeah.
You file an issue against your ex 35-page document with evidence.
That was in the first one.
And that gets dismissed.
Right. The second proceedings, right? So court bundles, I know how to make my own court bundles and stuff. So obviously I've learned it in college, in uni, right? Now, the rule is, unless you've got permission from the judge, you cannot exceed 345 pages for a court bundle, right? I did 342.
That sounds like you're taking the piss a little bit.
No, it was 342 pages, right? But it was literally all the court applications thus far, which was about, you got to think, a C100 is like 50 pages or something stupid like that.
Why does it need to be 50 pages?
Oh, because it's long-winded.
I could write it in a page.
Yeah, but the thing is, you've got to have, for a C100 application, you've got to have proof that you've done mediation or that you're exempt and so on and so forth. So it's about 50 pages on its Todd.
Feels a waste.
Yeah. But this is the thing, a lot of people don't understand these documents. Like you said before we started, I'm fortunate to know how to file these documents, where to file them, how to fill them in. But dads that haven't got a law degree like me, they haven't got a Scooby-Doo.
So what do you think about the system for the fact of you're in the position of you know how to do all these documents. You can write them, you can file them, and you do a lot yourself, but you've still been withheld contact and you're not seeing your child for 2 years. What do you think about
the system's broken? I'm arguing for mainly because the thing is, being autistic and having ADHD and having dyslexia, it creates a multitude of issues. So I can have traits of, I'm blunt and honest to the point. I've had people say to me, oh, we're friends, and I've gone, no, you're not my friend. You only come to me when you need help. But I'm fine with that. That's how I am. But then that can also be seen as a narcissistic trait or a personality trait as part of another personality disorder. Because under the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Mental Health Conditions, which was written by the American Psychological Association, there's a comorbidity of symptoms when it comes to neurodivergent conditions. So ADHD, dyslexia, autism can all share traits with bipolar, with NPD, BPD, traits of autism when you have a meltdown can share, or those symptoms of that can share traits with what's known as IED, intermittent explosive disorder. So it's quite often that people are diagnosed with the wrong thing and it takes a long time to get it right. So, but the thing is, judges and certain solicitors they don't have a clue how someone's supposed to present. This judge is obviously looking at me, in my opinion, and thinking this guy's a narcissist, this guy's a bully, this guy's this. But it's not. That's just me being autistic. Right? And the thing is, the worst part about it all is they actually have a book, right, on how to deal with people with neurodivergent conditions, but the judiciary don't have to read it if they don't want to. It's only an advisory book. It's not compulsory. It's the Equal Treatment Bench Book, and it's issued by the Judicial College, right? And it basically explains how to, we might present ourselves in to a court, multiple applications, multiple this, multiple that, failing to understand a certain explanation and so on. And it even explains how to deal with those types of situations. But it's only advisory. They don't have to read it if they don't want to.
That sounds like it should be mandatory.
Yeah. considering the thing is, like, when I walked into the Royal Courts in London to do my appeal, there's a big, massive sign at the front that says hidden disabilities, that, you know, sunflower, you know, and so on. Not all disabilities can be seen. But yeah, I filed an application to seek permission from my carer to be allowed to assist me in the court by, like, handing me documents and stuff, because I've got severe carpal tunnel in my hands. And at the time, I'm waiting on surgery for one hand, and the other hand's like, I've lost like 50% of the feeling in both hands. And I was asking for my carer to be able to help me, like, look through documents and stuff. And I never got a reply. And he didn't deal with the application till the end of the proceedings.
A little bit pointless.
Yeah, I know. When I tried to explain that to him, he was like, oh, I thought that was for another date. And I went, no, that's for today. And then we carried on, and then basically turned around at the end of the court here, and I went, this is why I don't have... After my partner stood up, tried to apologise and asked to leave because she was having an anxiety attack, he shouted at her and told her to get out, right? And then turned around to me and went, this is why I don't allow partners inside my courtroom for this exact reason. And I was like, but all she wanted to do was apologise.
Isn't the court system meant to be for the people?
Yeah, it is. But the problem is, there's certain judges and certain people that are allowed to take the law into their own hands. And the thing is, there's no way to actually hold them accountable properly. Like, you've got what's known as the JCIO, right? It's the Judicial Courts Complaints Investigation Office, right? But if you don't explain in an email down to the T, the time, the phrase, exactly what you're trying to get at, they throw it out. They say this complaint's to do with the legal, like, you got to do it through the legal process. Like, I turned around and said that this judge was sarcastic and rude and belittling towards me. They turned around and went, they ruled out 3/4 of my complaint because apparently it was to do with the legal issue. I wasn't complaining about the legal aspect. I was complaining about how the judge handled the legal aspect. But because they interpreted what I said in not the same way I said it, like, my complaint ended up going nowhere.
That sounds like the police policing their own complaints.
Yeah, pretty much.
And, you know, there's a reason why they have their own body that polices them.
But the thing is, there's a very fine line between what's illegal, has to be dealt with in the courtroom via legal applications, like when you take it to an appeal and you ask for the decision to be reconsidered. But when you're complaining about someone's behaviour while they're dealing with a legal matter, sometimes it's like neurodivergence, like traits of one but fall into another kind of, but
yeah,
seems like another. And the thing is, it's they've got people making decisions they didn't even talk to me. They didn't even email me or ask me to confirm anything. They just went, yeah, now bye. You're not having that.
I think we've pretty much come towards the end now. Before I get into the last few questions, is there anything else that you wanted to go over or cover that we've not already touched on?
No, I think that's about it, to be fair. It's, what can you say? You get you hear the same story sort of over and over again.
It seems painful, the fact of you do know the system well, yeah, but yet you're having these difficulties. One thing I've not asked is, how much have you spent so far approximately fighting to see your kid?
Luckily enough, I spent just over $5,000 when I started in the first proceedings, but luckily enough I managed to get the rest of it on legal aid. But if you throw in time, fuel, applications, having to get a hotel for the night when I did the find and fact, all that kind of stuff, and the travel and mileage, I'm probably looking 10 to 20k over the years.
And you currently have 0 contact and you've not seen your child for 2 years.
All because of an alleged comment and some social worker that didn't like me.
And no evidence.
Yeah.
So the first question that I wanted to ask, did you see any red flags in the relationship that you chose to ignore?
Yes. There was one that I've always remembered. So it was the day I met my ex's two eldest kids, and we were walking to the cars from past New Street, and because we were parked at the bull ring, the mailbox, and her eldest son turned around and went, "Are you coming over for Christmas?" Blah blah. And I said, "I might be. It depends on what Mum says." And Mum and like my ex went, "Yeah, well, we'll talk about it, but I don't see why not," kind of thing. And her eldest son turned around and went, "Yay, no more broken brain mommy this year."
What?
Yeah, so her eldest said about a drink mommy would drink during Christmas, right? And it's called a medicinal snowball. So it's the snowball, it's like orange lemonade and vodka or something, or whatever that drink is, right? And he would say mommy would drink snowballs at Christmas, and mommy told us that the reason why she does it is because she has a broken brain. And I chose to ignore that one because I thought it was just a kid being a kid. But looking back on it, that was a serious red flag. A child knows what an alcoholic beverage is.
After everything, have you learned anything?
Yes. Patience. A lot of it. I've learned to be patient. I've learned to be more careful, more understanding. And I've also learned not to rush into things or let myself get swept up in the moment.
What advice would you give to another father going through separation?
Be amicable as possible. Don't try taking digs because you want to get one back over on you. Or like because you want to get one, take a dig back because they hurt you. Because the thing is, if you go into a courtroom with that attitude, right, and the judge sees that, you are setting yourself up to fail from the start. Just don't rise to the arguments. Don't try and pull in every little petty thing like the mom, but mum said this to me or she said that to me or so on, right? Just focus on the child. If you ever get to that sort of, and you haven't used the court system, make everything child focused. And don't start going, well, she said this about me, so I want to do this. Because the judge will look at you and go, nah, you can go jump.
Would you have done anything differently?
No.
Did your experience of that relationship make you hesitant about getting into another relationship?
Yes, I needed years of therapy. I had sexual assault specialist therapy, domestic abuse counselling, and most recently, after what happened with the court proceedings last year, I needed therapy again to deal with that because it broke me.
Have you still got therapy now?
No, I did the course of therapy, and it helped me realise that it wasn't the court that broke me, it was the actions of a few. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And the last one, which I mentioned to you before we started, have you got 2 words to summarise this episode? And that'll be the name of your podcast.
Yeah, so it's a bit like the question you say, would I do anything different? And the answer is no. And the reason is because of the reward.
Your child.
Yeah. My daughter is the reward that came out of that relationship. And if I hadn't have been through that, there's a potential I wouldn't have a daughter. And I wouldn't be completing a law degree and a legal practicing course to be able to help other dads, especially, or other people with neurodivergent like me. I wouldn't know anything about this or anything about the broken system, and I wouldn't be able to fight it. I'd be oblivious to it. So for me, it's the reward.
That's good. And I think, I mean, I said that was the last question, but how far are you off now being certified?
I've got exams in 3 weeks, so that would be end of February, which if I pass all of them, I'll get my legal practicing certificate. And then I just need 2 years as a training solicitor to be registered with the SRA, which is the Solicitors Regulation Authority.
And do you have plans, I'm guessing, to use that to help?
Yeah, I kind of do at the minute. So the thing is, I can't give legal advice until I'm qualified. But
you can give guidance, I guess.
No, but you can ask me what my opinion is.
Okay, is that all?
So if you ask me what my opinion of a situation is, I could tell you what I would do if I was in that situation, but I can't, like, say my legal advice would be to do X, Y, and Z because it's classed as a reserved legal activity under the Legal Services Act. So, you know, I can say, well, if I was in that situation, I would do X, Y, and Z, right? But that's just me. You know, it might be that you need to do something else, but I can give guidance. Like I can say, you know, if someone says to me, what form do I need to file and where? I can say, yeah, you take the C100 and you file this, this, and this. But I can't say my legal advice is to fill this form in and send it off. I can tell you what the law is. I can tell you what interpretation I take from that with the education I've had so far, but I can't tell you how that affects you.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I get you.
So, yeah.
No, I think that's everything. It's been really good. It's been insightful, especially with your knowledge and training and what you've been through in the court system. And I really do hope you manage to get contact again with your daughter.
Fingers crossed.
But I'm glad you came. It's been great.
But no, thanks very much for letting me come. I appreciate it.
Cheers.
Bye.